a chance to anybody who needed to catch up for midterms could, so taking the time we would for class and catching up, and then drop add. Sometimes there's a way to see how many students are inside of the class too.
I thought that was interesting. I'm like,
Well, that is interesting.
thanks, but okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, unless, like you said, unless the class is full, then I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Right. Do you remember where we locate that form?
We did it through the Central State website.
Right. If you go to the registration registrar and you click on that, but do you need a computer to get it?
I think I might be able to pull it from my phone.
Okay. That's nice that they wrote back that quickly. Maybe to be helpful. I wonder what that one is. All right, so I'm going to try to plug it into the back. I'm hoping it's just this connection. Oh, there's a couple over here too. It's funny how you guys hear it from, like when I go live, that you can hear the skipping noise.
I thought it was like YouTube itself. So like I close out and then I come back.
Okay.
And it usually fixes itself. Or maybe you fixed it by then. I don't know.
Right. No, I feel like the internet signal's low. You're correct that it could then also be YouTube itself. Sydney is here. Now it sounds like this is legitimately bad. And that kind of fixed it. It's not making that annoying noise anymore. Did we finish all of Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris?
I think
I can't remember. Some of them I got halfway through it, and I can't remember which class it was.
Yeah, I want to say we got through a portion of
Okay.
it because you turned it off before the end because you said it was copyright stuff.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm going to say you finished.
Okay.
Because towards the end there, she was talking about how she was saying like trauma can affect more than just, the surface. Like people can have lifelong issues, like heart disease.
Yes.
Can develop other things, because of certain things they're exposed to as a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that sounds right. Okay, and then we're finishing up as a group, so leading your group, we have a few things that they do. Sometimes you give them homework at the end of the group, and then you're building up. I know I'd already played these slides for online, but let's go into it's noisy.
Team building are extremely important to the acting stage of group. It emphasizes how groups can achieve tasks that cannot be accomplished by an individual alone. Teams rely on openness, honesty, compassion, enthusiasm, integrity, and a commitment to communication. Other factors that contribute or distract from the development of teams include the leadership style, the member maturity and motivation, and the group task or purpose characteristics, as well as the stability and the size of the group, the available time, and the organizational, cultural, and societal expectations of the group.
So a lot of times you're asked to lead a group together with other members of a team. That was something I had to do a lot at Lighthouse. And it's good if you are a good teammate and you also have a good teammate. So there's a lot of variables that can throw it off. I did have some groups that I led where you really do want to start on time and finish on time. And a lot of times I would have somebody, if it was once or twice coming in 10, 20 minutes late, not a huge deal. There's legit reasons. But if it is repeatedly and you're trying to run the group together and co-run the group, it can be a problem, it takes some important, significant teamwork. Or maybe if you are co-leading the group, communication is key, letting somebody know. Right, yeah. And I remember my one bad experience, and most of them are okay, and that's probably why I like to lead my own groups. But if you do co-lead, you've got to be on point. Who's going to write the notes for the group? Who's going to take the first half? Who's going to lead the second half? Who's going to get them through the activities? Without that communication, even with kids, they notice it. They can tell you aren't prepared. They can tell you're not ready to lead the group, and it's a problem. So here's some of the things that they do for these working groups. Let's see if it'll let me play it from here. Okay, it does, kind of. Every time I try to click on it, it disappears. Okay.
Some of the strategies that your author suggests are probably familiar, like where group leaders model complex behaviors to allow members to copy or imitate the behavior as a way of learning it. Leaders may model self-disclosure or caring confrontation as a way to help their members understand what the behavior looks like in action. Exercises can help direct and bring group members into the action by designing and implementing activities that promote interpersonal and intrapersonal learning for group members. These two strategies, along with group processing and teaching of skills, are where I would encourage you to focus your attention. Group processing capitalizes on the here and now experience of group members and allows the group to reflect on the meaning of their experiences to better understand their own thoughts, feelings, and actions, and then take time to generalize what's happened in the group to their life outside of the group. Group processing is considered a naturally occurring dynamic, but skilled leaders can facilitate this to promote growth in individuals in the group. The teaching of skills can also improve performance in a working stage by helping members feel more confident about their abilities and by improving those abilities.
So sometimes in a group, you will have to model appropriate behavior. And I like the one where they talk about Self-disclosure, because have you ever heard in any of our social work classes when self-disclosure is okay or appropriate? Has anybody ever given the golden rule on that one?
I don't know. I don't think self-disclosure. I think I've heard self-determination.
Right.
And that's also on the client.
Right. You let them choose their own dreams
Right.
and
And
goals.
you try to encourage them to make their own decisions.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, that can ultimately fall back on the social worker. Like, oh, you told me. And it's like, no.
Right. It does. So self-disclosure, they always say we use it in rare instances. And the most important time to use it is when it is beneficial to the client. If you're in a therapy session and you're self-disclosing all the time, all you're doing is making the client have a therapy session with you. You're just talking about you. So we should do more listening, but when appropriate, self-disclosure is okay. And it's usually when it is an example or experience that's beneficial to the client. And in groups, it's good to show them how to self-disclose, because sometimes it takes that one person to open up, that one person to talk about things, to get vulnerable. Is that the highway over there? I always forget which way
That's
it's the.
it's not a highway, but it goes to Beaver Creek. And
Oh, yeah.
It's the one that spits you out by Speedway.
Right. It's so busy
It's
and
very
loud.
busy.
Right. Okay. So then we get to some of the outcomes, and this is another thing you'll document in your notes. When you lead groups at agencies that they pay you for, you always have to write a note, especially when it's Medicare and Medicaid, because if you don't have the note, they don't pay you. And if you don't have the assessment, have I taken you guys through the Golden Thread PowerPoint yet? How to do, basically it's assessments, diagnosis, and how to write treatment plans and goals with objectives. It's a long PowerPoint, but it's good for when you do your agencies or internship. Are you going to do your internship next semester or your fall semester?
It'll be, my field is for fall.
Okay. Which they'll teach you there, but I always try to give you guys a head start on that.
And this is outcomes for the group?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll go into that. It's usually just
when the working stage draws to a close, goals have been worked on and achieved, and there has been significant learning and sharing of ideas and information. Members have likely experienced an emotional release or catharsis, and may have gained enough insight and awareness that they're able to cognitively restructure their lives, which is to say that they can actually think of and perceive themselves differently than at the beginning of the group. Feedback is an additional outcome of the working stage, with members exchanging specific and positive feedback, which is generally a higher quality of feedback than in the earlier stages of the group. Humor, which we talk about here as being the ability to laugh at oneself in a non-defensive manner, is another outcome of the working stage.
So goals and objectives are achieved. That's where you write your note about goals and objectives. And I am going to do the Golden Thread PowerPoint because that will help to show. It'll probably be more next week, but how do we write, we assess the client, we create a diagnosis and goals that they will work on, and then objectives, which you also have in a group. So it's very similar. And then closing the group. So the next few slides are on how we close the group.
As we move out of the working stage, we begin to think about the process of closing a group. This, however, should not be the first time that termination comes up in the life of the group. By setting expectations for members on how many sessions a group will meet, and reminding members as the number of sessions begins to become smaller, leaders can help prepare members for the process of termination. Successful group termination promotes change in individuals and sets the expectation for group members that a new experience is about to begin, one beyond the group experience. Boundaries, both physical and psychological, help members prepare for endings. Helping members think about how termination will proceed can help prevent issues that may stem from unexpected surprises. We keep in mind here that there are two different types of closings, the closing of each session and then the termination of the group as a whole. Similar to my earlier comments, in the closing of a session, group leaders are encouraged to remind members of the time a few minutes before the end of the session, rather than surprise members by abruptly ending the session. At the end of a session, the group may summarize the material from that session, reviewing goals, or thinking about what members might do after the session ends, perhaps including homework. Again, the same tasks are appropriate when the group terminates, with group members reviewing the material and goals that were covered in the group and looking toward the future. Keep in mind that in closed groups, everyone begins and ends the group at the same time, which allows for a great deal of predictability, as the time limit may be known and communicated from the very start of the group. In open groups, however, endings are highly individualized, and the close of each and every session could serve as the closing session for some.
So some support groups are definitely open-ended. I'd say Al-Anon family groups is one of the open-ended ones. Closed groups are often 10 or 12 weeks. Like you could have a trauma group. You could have my friend led a military veterans group, which was semi-open-ended, but also had an open and a close because they had assessments of the veteran and then closure. So it will depend on what it would look like. Most groups we advertise and that insurance companies pay for, they will have a time frame like 10 to 12 weeks, and they'll pay for the group, and it's okay. So just keeping that in mind when we do the sessions and like assess them. Okay.
When it does come time to close a group, termination can be done in a variety of formats, but may include member where members respond to prompts or have a designated time to share their own thoughts and reactions. Pairing members off into dyads can also provide time for feedback and reflection, and written reactions can be a really nice way for members to consider their own experience and reactions, and may even offer them a tangible piece for them to walk away with. Rating sheets can be helpful for individual reflection, where members rate themselves, others, or the group leader on a number of dimensions like involvement, risk-taking, goals, emotional involvement, feedback, and productivity. Homework may not be as appropriate in the final session as it is during the closing of a typical session, but some members do enjoy having a specific focus as they lead the group experience. The final closing also includes a capping of skills, which is a chance for members to gain the activities that we just discussed, like summarization, rounds, and dyads, can also serve to help with the capping of skills.
I didn't mean to cut off right in the middle.
Summarization, rounds, and dyads can all serve to help with the capping of skills. Additionally, members can assess their levels of change, rehearse behavior for upcoming settings, and finally, take time to say goodbye as part of the final closing. There are many, many activities and exercises that can facilitate the final goodbye, but generally all of them promote genuine, thoughtful, and a hopeful closing for members as they look toward the future.
So sometimes it's nice to have recognition they finished their treatment plan goals and all the objectives, and maybe like even a graduation party or like at least at the end like a pizza party, because it's something to celebrate for sure. Even in Al-Anon, they'll celebrate like your 1 year anniversary and 2 year and whatnot since you came to Al-Anon family groups. So having some way to celebrate that. And then this is the last piece, and I'll go into the golden thread stuff, or at least start it.
To review, we now know that working groups and non-working groups differ in a number of important ways, including specifically trust, communication, cohesion, and power. Leaders can assist working groups through strategies including modeling, group exercises and processing, and through teaching skills. The closing stage requires planning and forewarning and promotes reflection on growth and the new skills that members learn and develop as part of their experience in the group. This concludes our lecture on the working and closing stages in group development. Thanks for listening.
So again, yeah, making sure that they know it's going to end. That's the other final piece I kind of skipped, that you don't want to just like abruptly say, all right, group is over. It would be like stopping the class in the middle of the whole semester. Like, sorry for you guys, got to go now, bye. And not a good way to do it. So, I bet you it's in my Dropbox folder. Let's see here. Golden thread. Here it is. It's a large file too. I didn't know I had something about the core competencies in Golden Thread. I don't remember doing that. Oh, it's just an older version of this. Okay. So when you get somebody at you work for like a social work agency and you get them for the session, there's something that comes up with them. And they call it the golden thread because you. This is the full overview. Oh shoot, it's still in presentation mode, isn't it? I don't know why. That's weird. I guess we'll go ahead and try to present it. There we go. So, a DAF is diagnostic assessment of functioning. So sometimes as an intern, they'll train you how to do it. Definitely when you're your license, you can diagnose with your supervisor signing off. When you have your independent license, you can diagnose on your own. And when you have the supervision credential, you can supervise people that are diagnosed. From that diagnosis, you'll find what the clinically appropriate services are. Then you get into ISP, stands for Individualized Service Plan, and a review if you have to like update their plan for whatever reason. Then how do you write the progress notes? And that would be even for the group. You write a progress note, every single group. It is based off of the diagnosis and clinical services. Sometimes there's semi-annual reports, fair notes, if there's like Medicaid, and then a discharge summary. So that's kind of like what it looks like at the agencies. This seems like an old one too. That's interesting. So golden thread is the real connection between the assessed consumer's needs, strengths, and preferences, and then the personal goals. ISP is the individualized service plan and the services provided. So when we first get a client, we do the assessment. We do, as social workers, like to see what their unmet needs are, and then working off of their strengths and preferences for treatment. And they might even have personal goals. So even when you're creating a treatment plan, you say what their personal goals would be. That's part of it. Yep.
Could you just go back to the last one just real fast?
Yeah, sure. Yep. That.
Yeah. Or two. Sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it should how to like work the way through treatment. I know it's still translating in Russian at the bottom.
What's wrong with that one?
It's when we had Russian students. Oh, that's nice. Is there a way I can? Oh, if that gets rid of them, I'm sticking with it. I think it did, but it just looks like it's cutting off a lot of the power at the bottom. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That works for me. So yeah, and then it's always about documentation. People will be like, why do we write so many notes as a social worker? And it's because, or why do we write so many papers? And that's because when you're in the practice, we're writing so many notes and keeping up with everything. And this is several slides, so I feel like we are going to do more of it next week, but I at least wanted to start it with you guys. Let's see if it's still filming okay. Okay. So yeah, this is what we talked about in closing the group. You write a progress note, and the progress notes document the treatment you provide to the client and their progress towards goals. ISP, or individualized service plans, identify the goals you will work towards in treatment. And then the DAF is the diagnostic assessment. So when you assess a client, it identifies the client's needs and recommendations for treatment. And this provides a foundation for you and what you're going to do on the individualized service plan. So Medicaid always needs one of these on file. So when you get paid by Medicare and Medicaid, you need assessment, treatment plan, or the ISP is the individualized service plan, and then your notes. And if one of those is missing, they will audit you. Well, they'll audit you looking to see if those are missing. So, I have an example of an assessment too. Have you ever seen one before? So maybe that's what I'm going to get into next. And I have an example of a treatment plan. So that one was called Training ISP. But this is like, yeah, where the rubber hits the road when we have our final things that we write up. So here's an assessment. Oftentimes you have like the narrative. It's 10 pages long, so it's definitely a lot. This one, when we trained people with this at Lighthouse, we tried to use names that people were familiar with, like maternal aunt Celine Dion, and Homer. Do we call it? Oh yeah, we did call it Homer Simpson. And then Jan Brady. Anyway, we also used real scenarios. We used names from things people were familiar with, and then scenarios. You often put who lives in their house with them, like age, where they work, then even the relationship to client. If they're in two houses, you cover that. And if they're in, right, yep, yeah, from their home. So you weren't able to see any of that again. That is so weird.
I thought you were going
right. I wonder why. It must be in presentation mode again. Sometimes it lets me drag it though. I hate when it's on presentation though, because then I have to get over here. Okay, so yeah, here's the thing I was referring to on the first page. So you'll have like a narrative, what happened, why they came to you, namely the presenting problem. So like referral source, reason for referral, description of the problem, family perception of the problem. And I'll try to send this out to you guys on the announcements, just because they're good to have to know that you'll do assessments like this. So yeah, secondary household street address, if there is a reunification plan. Like here, plans for home to remain in the care of paternal grandmother. She's going to file for permanent custody of him. His aunt assigned temporary guardianship. You include stuff about siblings, the parent-child relationship, and this one it has a little bit of everything. So it has like domestic violence, sexual abuse, some of the siblings. He was placed at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. That's what that stands for. For stabilization, that was common at Lighthouse. Then talking about the couple's relationship. It became rocky after 2 years, and police were called with altercations in the past 2 years. And dad was arrested and put in jail for 6 months. So using like what is a real scenario, then this is more of a checklist, but other family concerns. So there are mental health problems, not so much alcohol, which is also easy to lie about. If there's a disability or legal issues or financial concerns. You're usually given 4 sessions to like complete all of this at Lighthouse. So you could see them 4 weeks in a row until you wrote this whole report. So it is almost like a school paper if you took 3 or 4 weeks to write it, an hour a week. So you get 4 hours total. And again, it's just kind of filling in every single box all the way down. And then from there, asking like, the strengths, he's a bright young man. He has hope in his future, seems to care about the well-being of others, especially his family members. He reports he is positive. Some feel he should become a motivational speaker. He feels he is a good person and wants to help others after he helps himself. He seems to be the caretaker for his family and members, even though no one had officially requested he do this. So if there's community support, you'll list them like AA, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, National Association of Mental Illness, I think, and then Ohio CFC. I always forget what NAMI. Do you remember what NAMI stands for? National Association of Mental Illness. I can't remember exactly, but
I was like, I think I've just been so heavy on NSAW that I'm
right. Right. That's fine. You don't have to memorize all these, but there's so many, it's hard to remember sometimes.
And you said that stands for?
National Association of Mental Illness, I believe. They even throw in spirituality, so like all the strengths you can think of, you could approach working with a client from, whether it's individual or group, because a lot of times when you have them in groups, you also do individual sessions at the same time. So here it says, Homer indicates he is a Christian. He enjoys attending, participating in church services. Paternal grandmother says he loves to read the Bible. He inherited a devotional Bible from his mother that he reads daily. Homer is a biracial male. His mother was Caucasian. His father is African American. He is close with both sides of his family. He states he used to have issues with in school with people teasing him due to his race, but feels has subsided as he has gotten older. Homer reports being heterosexual. He has a girlfriend. He reports they are not sexually active. So you're covering all of this, and then you even get into the human behavior and the social environment stuff. So anything relevant developmentally, like if they had a car accident or a head injury or abuse or separation, and here it's probably shown as ADHD diagnosis, so adolescent, age 13 to 17. Sexual history pertinent to issues. Homer's 12-year-old sister and cousin allege that Homer has tried to have sex with them. His sister reports giving him oral sex. Homer did not report this, and it's unclear if he is aware of the current allegations at this time. Also, if there's a 504 plan, that's like for disabilities. There's other hearing impaired, traumatic brain injury, autism, deafness, visual impaired, speech impairment. So, I mean, it covers, that's why it's 10 pages. It asks if there's any of these, every single thing you can think of. And from there, it asks about school. So Homer is in Springfield High School. He's in the 10th grade. He didn't have enough credits to be in the 11th. Homer reports struggling with school attendance due to his depression. He states, I didn't do nothing for a while. So sometimes you'll quote the client too, and you put it into quotes. So it's their exact words. Because he had no motivation to attend. When he was in school, he struggled to maintain concentration. Homer reports having issues with focus and concentration, he stated. No barriers to learning. He reports having a lot of people that he'll associate with at school, but not necessarily being friends with any of them. So he would just go to school and hang out with them. Legal history. I feel like they mentioned that earlier, but I could be wrong because of the sexual allegations. But this is the end. If there's like other stuff, if he's ever been in other mental health treatment history or a hospitalization or a residential treatment facility. Wow, we're only like halfway through actually. I thought we were almost to the diagnosis. Past medication. His doctor was at Good Body Health Center. He took Adderall, but quit because it made him anxious. He took it for about a month. It is a psychotropic med. No substance abuse history, no prescription drug abuse. This is why we have to teach you guys all the different 9, 10, 11 different classes to cover all these things that we do on assessment, just one assessment. So cigarettes, he smokes daily, 2 packs a week, smoking. Almost to the middle. Domestic violence, so abuse and trauma history. There's options for neglect and witness to domestic violence between his mother and father, alleged perpetrator of sexual abuse to his sister and cousin. CPS involvement with the family, yes. CPS caseworker is Jan Brady. And then problem checklist, if they had any of these, like nutritional or eating, pain management, if they had like a surgery, depressed mood or sad. Yes, it was checked as evidenced by low energy level, poor concentration, sadness, history of suicidal and cutting behaviors. Mother just died in November and father is in jail. So that's bereavement issues. I mean, that's a major trauma. Like you lost both your parents. That's a lot. Trauma, witness to domestic violence between parents, anger and aggression because of current family situation, reports racing thoughts that keep him awake. So he has sleep problems, psychosocial stressors, recent moves to paternal grandmother's home following a hospitalization after mother died, father in jail. He has a trial for domestic violence, leading to mother's death, siblings separated from one another. So last page or two here, we've got like, this is usually where we would check boxes to see if he would get both case management, that's what this is, and then also therapy. So we did say case management is appropriate for him, evidenced by his inability to utilize positive coping skills when feeling overwhelmed. And then other outcomes used, usually we would have like either Ohio scales or CANS. So every agency uses something different. CANS, I believe, I gotta remember it, stands for Child Adolescent Needs and Strengths. Completed that intake, which identified spiritual, religious, family, and child involvement, supports, emotional, behavioral needs, include depression, adjustment to trauma, and anger control. So this is where you're like developing the treatment plan and what you're going to work on with them. Ohio still always makes us do a mental status exam, and that's attached. I guess I'll find that file and open it for next week because I know we're at the end. Then you give a diagnosis. So after all that, There's still a few more things you write up. And here is your, oh, you write the narrative again. I feel like it almost mimics what was written at the top, but that way you have the narrative at the top to start you out, all the reasons why you had the narrative, and the narrative again to show the diagnosis down here. I actually think we don't use codes anymore. DSM-4 we used codes, but now it's the DSM-5. Do you guys get a DSM class ever? You probably get it in grad school.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you haven't, I haven't had one.
Those are his 3 diagnoses. And yeah, you probably don't need one. You might get it in psychology, but so he was diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder. I have a DSM-5 if you guys want it, like a digital copy. It's free. Have you ever seen them? They're like this.
Oh, they're just like a small little sheet of paper.
It's a Bible-sized book of diagnoses.
Oh, I'm like, is it, because you, okay.
It's huge. They do have a desktop one that's like this, and it has just real quick. But it has all these codes. Because it's also the international codes for diagnosis 9. They're actually on the 10 now. And then the Diagnostic Statistics Manual 4, we're on the 5 now. I can send it to you if you want it. If you don't, that's okay too. It's fine either way.
And so is that book ever, well, I would assume it's always growing. Or,
Oh yeah, it's changed all the time. When I was in psychology undergraduate, it was DSM-3, and they have the 3TR, which means text revision, and they had the 4, DSM-4TR, text revision, DSM-5. I think they're on the DSM-5TR by now. So, but in the 70s, it was a diagnosis. They don't have that anymore. Trauma was a big addition to the DSM-5 that not just veterans are diagnosed PTSD, now children can be diagnosed PTSD. So you can see that, and I'll send it to you guys in the announcements just because that's how you'll diagnose for your group too. And then, yeah, so we refer him to therapy, refer him to case management, also refer him to like a group, counsel for boys and young men's group, grief counseling. He got referred to everything because he had a lot going on. Also psychiatric, because he might need like psychiatry for meds. And there is, who is Olivia Pope? I feel like that's another name that's like a famous character.
I was going to say, because obviously for, confidential reasons, I was like, these are things that are like,
they're fake,
cartoons,
but they're from cartoons.
Yeah.
But I think she's something too. I guess I would have to search it, but now I'm in.
And then, I'm sorry, did you scroll up?
Yeah.
I just wanted to see
The what?
just a little more.
The diagnosis part?
Yeah, the evaluation right because it has psychiatric, so why wouldn't it be psychological as well?
Well, in a sense, we did just do a psychological evaluation.
Okay.
Because we as social workers are as good as psychologists. They may try to argue differently, but that is a psychological evaluation.
Okay, so that would stand for that.
But that's a good question. That's definitely. I mean, he's a grade behind. I guess you could check a lot of these. He also could have the sexual abuse. He clearly has trauma. So it depends on who it is, but you could check all of those, but definitely psychiatric because it's medication and stuff. So that's what an assessment looks like. I'm sure it's changed a little. It's DSM-5 now, but and I know we're over on time, but I'll try to send DSM-5 to you guys for next week. Because, yeah, I always